Pro Savings Days doorbuster deals are on at Lowe's. My Lowe's Pro Rewards members save an additional $120 on a GE 21.9 cubic foot top freezer refrigerator. Plus, members save $70 on a Bosch hammer drill, now only $99. Not a Pro Rewards member? Join for free today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 7/23 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. See lowes.com/terms for details. Subject to change.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. Thanks for tuning in to our little program. Of all the shows you'll hear on the radio, this is definitely one of them. Here's what you'll learn if you stick around tonight. The story of the CEO getting caught kissing someone at his company on that camera at a Coldplay concert. I know, it sparked outrage everywhere. But there's something deeper here, a twist. Most of us are doing this too, in some shape or another. Which is to say, workplace hookups are everywhere. People are getting busy with their coworkers. The numbers don't lie. But what's behind them? And what should HR departments do to handle this? Because prohibition when it comes to people being sexy at work doesn't work. At work. I know, I said the word work one too many times. That's coming up in about 10 minutes. After that, medical researchers have found that damage to a specific brain pathway might trigger criminal behavior. Seriously. Could the results of a brain scan change how we think about guilt, justice, and our own free will to keep ourselves from committing crimes? We'll tackle that halfway through the hour. There's more great stuff coming up, which we'll tell you about as the weird boat navigates through the strange river, if that made sense. But for now, let's jump in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
And in governments surveilling and watching what you do while you're alone, in your home, on your computer, looking at whatever it is you entertain yourself with news. Tony Five is here, foreign correspondent, to give what I think is kind of a strange, maybe alarming update for what's going on with privacy in the UK. Tony, we might actually be covering something serious today.
It's slightly worrying. So from today, like the 25th of July, essentially, the UK has had these policies pushed forward about age verification for all sorts of sites. So not just pornography, but like social media sites like Reddit. And there are another few ones that are going on, right? And they're doing these enhanced age verification. So before, sometimes, I don't know about you, you'd go on some sites and it just asks you for your date of birth and you click yes and go, right?
Sure. Anything with the word enhanced as it comes to the government makes me worry.
Enhanced interrogation, enhanced searches, exactly.
I've gone to a website for research purposes and had to tell them I was over 21 or whatever to look at videos for research purposes. Yes, of course, we've all done that.
Of course. So they think at the moment, the statistics are that 14 million people in the UK watch online sort of naughtiness, and that's fine. And then they're trying to work out whether they can stop the children who are watching it, so anyone under 18, because it's affecting them very negatively, obviously, giving them sort of unexpected expectations of the art of making love and things like that, right?
No, you don't have to sell me on keeping adult entertainment away from children. I think that's a reasonable position.
So there's like cybersecurity experts and all sorts of things. So they have like recommended these different methods. Now, each one, for me personally, is worrying, but I'd like to know your take on them, right? So the first one, credit card. So to be over 18, you have to have a credit card. So you put your credit card details in.
So like I go on a website that rhymes with corn bub, and in order to look at a video, I got to just put in my credit card.
Or let's just say Reddit. It can be Reddit. It doesn't have to be anything naughty.
Oh, like Facebook, social media, Instagram, anything?
Yeah, it can be. Well, it's social media. The big ones that they've mentioned in the articles are Reddit and Pornhub, which Pornhub being the biggest one in the UK, and then obviously Reddit being another one. But usually for Reddit, and even like the other site, you go in completely anonymously, right? They don't usually, like, whenever you go onto Reddit, I think they just allocate you a random username.
Yeah, it's like a fully private social network, and private in the sense that it's not private, it's anonymous is what I'm trying to say, yeah.
Yes, anonymous but not private, correct. There's a real discrepancy there, isn't there?
Sure. Anyway, okay, to go on Reddit, to go on an adult website, I give them my credit card number. They don't take my cash, but they use that number to say, hey, I'm an adult. Am I comfortable with that? No, not at all. Would I do it if the government forced me to do it, which is what's happening in your country? Maybe I would, yes. It's not going so far that I'm going to basically say I'm not using the internet over this.
Okay, next one. So, digital identity services. Have you heard of that?
What does that mean?
So, basically, you have uploaded a copy of your government issued ID, passport, driver's license. Those are the main ones we have in the UK. Birth certificate doesn't have a picture on it. And it cross-checks that. So it will have a security code or something like that. How do you feel about that?
So it's like a third-party website that I update and then somehow it connects. It can sign in with Gmail, sign in with Hotmail. It's basically like a sign in with this third-party identity provider. And I've already given them my photo ID in order to get onto Cornhub to browse various seeds of corn crops that I might buy.
Yep. How are you feeling about that?
I don't love it.
Okay. Right. So that's number 2. Number 3, email-based age expectation. So if you had, I don't know, David Cooper at davidcooper.com, some sort of algorithm will work out that you also use that email for online banking. So that's another backdoor way to check that email you uses it for stuff that you would only use over 18. Your social security, like paying utility bills, so on.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that?
It's funny. I don't think people realize by using the same email address for everyone, it's like very much a fingerprint.
I wouldn't know.
Like, I'm not saying all these companies, collude or there's some background marketing company that tracks you everywhere based on your email address, but that's basically like a unique identifier for you on the internet. You think signing up to something is anonymous, but the second you give them that email...
But it's not.
Even if you don't give them your name, you gave your name to another site where you gave them your email, boom, it's all correlated.
Correct, and it completely brings it together.
Yeah.
And so this is genuinely terrifying for me. I mean, the last one, well, there's a couple more which are kind of related, like mobile network operator, we don't have to talk about. The ones that are terrifying, facial age estimation. So you take a selfie on your phone and AI somehow does all the facial recognition stuff and works out how old you are.
Look, I get why these laws are in place. I agree that young children should not be accessing certain things on the internet.
Correct.
However...
But is it a balance? Yeah. Is it a balance to lose your anonymity and your privacy online? Because it just means the one time you go on to any site that is kind of a little bit fruity, that's somewhere
fruity.
In the ether. That's it for life.
That's not how we use the word fruity in North America.
Oh, do you not? Okay. Oh, okay. We use it in the UK. Something a little bit salacious, a little bit fruity.
Fruity is a pejorative for like something a little bit. You know what? I'm not even going to tell you.
Okay.
Tony, you're asking me if these would make me comfortable, but that's a hypothetical. This has gone into place. Some form of verification has gone into place for social media websites, for adult entertainment websites in the UK.
Correct, today.
How do you feel about it? Because you are soon going to have to give a photo to yourself to look at those horrible websites that we can't tell your mother about.
Well, David, if you remember earlier on today, I did ask you to send me a selfie. So they tried to get me, David, but they won't.
No, I'm serious. Like, how do you feel? This is your government.
I feel it's horrible. It's actually turned me off wanting to go onto certain things. Like, it might make me not want to go on Cornhub now.
Well, there's the question, is that such a bad thing if less people are on?
No, it might make me have to go into my own memory bank to get the material I need.
To grow your corn.
Yeah, maybe I might not want to go on social media as much now because I'm now worried that if I make an off-color comment on any post, that is held somewhere against my name, right?
Yeah, your Reddit name, Pony, see, it's a code for Tony, Pony the Troll 666420, who just is mean to everyone and is prejudiced.
Exactly.
You don't want the government knowing that's you.
And I know that, entering some certain places in the world, they do ask you about your social media. They ask you kind of, can you open it and just, can we have a quick look at it? But people have been stopped, right?
That's definitely a thing that's happened. Tony 5, foreign correspondent. At the commercial break, I'm going to send Tony some wicked photos of corn because that's what we're really into.
I'm anonymous, David. I never exist anymore.
Tony, thank you for being here.
David, it's Tony 5 for now, but it might be Tony 6.
Or Tony 7, or maybe Tony 8. Up next, you've heard the outrage, a CEO caught kissing an employee at a concert. But here's the twist. Most of us are doing it at work too. Coming up after the break, believe it or not, workplace hookups seem to be everywhere. So why can't HR departments keep up?
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Where intellectual honesty gets witness protection from social prosecution. The Last Show with David Cooper.
An awkward kiss cam moment between a CEO and his employee went viral, but is this really a shock? I am with two reporters at Business Insider who say nearly everyone is hooking up at work, from innocent office crushes to full-blown affairs captured at Coldplay concerts. We explore why the office is more steamy than you'd think and what HR should do about it. That is, if HR can keep it together. I'm here with Mia de Graaf. Mia, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
And Julia Pugachevsky. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, is this just a salacious headline, or is everyone hooking up at work? Am I meant to take that literally?
A lot of people are hooking up at work. There's a good amount of research that shows that maybe 1 in 10 people find their partner at work. And then there's a survey that found that 60% of people have hooked up with someone at work. So it's pretty significant.
Is it sort of like Fight Club? The first rule is we just don't talk about it. Were you surprised when you found out just how common it is?
Well, look, I met my husband at work, but that's extremely common, as I'm finding, because you're in a situation where you might, where you might meet someone because of a like-minded situation. I mean, Julia, you spoke to a therapist about exactly why we're wired to do that.
Yeah, I think it also, I would say, depends on the age a little bit. I think with the kiss cam, them both being kind of older and high-powered positions, the therapist that I spoke to was saying that that's even more common sometimes because at that age, let's say in your 40s or your 50s, I don't know how old they are, but, you're more likely to just have more responsibilities in life or maybe more stress, more pressure. You might be trying to figure yourself out. That work might present opportunities to connect with someone in kind of a new way. So that's another sort of element to this whole story.
Yeah, you've got the family, you've got the kids, you're a high-powered executive. The only time you're going to get free time is with your coworkers in most cases.
Right.
We've got HR departments, we've got sexual harassment training, we've got Slack surveillance. It seems like corporations are really trying to prevent this, and yet people are still making out in the copy room. Why? Why are corporations so against it, and why do you think it happens so frequently anyway?
Well, I feel like the reason it happens so frequently is just because of human nature. There's a few different sort of psychological effects. One of them is called the mere exposure effect, which is literally just being around someone. You're just going to get to know them more. You'll build a fuller sense of who they are and maybe just see them in a new light. So, sometimes it's literally a convenience relationship. You're like, oh, wow, I see this person a lot. And then you're more likely to develop a relationship. And then there's another effect called the propinquity effect, which is that we're more likely to develop relationships with people that we're physically near. So you're more likely to be friends with your next door neighbor than you are to be friends with someone who lives 4 doors down, just because of that physical interaction. So we're kind of wired that way, and then we're also just sort of, as Julia found, there's all of the ingredients of emotional intimacy that you would need within a workplace. But the workplace, every psychologist I spoke to who works within a workplace, they said it is so naive if you try to stop this, because it's going to happen so much. So there are surveillance, there are rules, but a lot of workplaces that are smart about it will be proactive with rules that you could work within. So like a love contract, for example, that you could sort of agree that we're not going to cross a boundary, et cetera, just to make sure that everyone's aware, like, this relationship is happening, but it's kosher. But the problem, I think, with the kiss cam, I mean, we still don't know a ton of detail about what happened. If it was an affair, which is what Chris Martin implied it was, are you really going to proactively go to your employer, be like, hey, I'm cheating on my wife with this person? Like, can we sign a contract? Like,
no.
That's where I think it gets sticky.
And those boundaries, it seems like they're meant to be broken. I feel like it's sexy and salacious when someone, like a manager, hooks up with a report, or a CEO dates an HR head. The more inappropriate it is, the more exciting it's going to feel. But doesn't that affect the workplace when those boundaries are crossed, when power dynamics exist within these affairs or relationships?
I think so. I mean, as Mia was saying, it seems unavoidable. And I'll say too, with workplace relationships, this is an environment where I think what makes workplace affairs or relationships so enticing is that you are also, you're going to this place where you're dressing up every day. I think especially post-pandemic, you're showing up, you're maybe very ambitious, or you're being appreciated for your ideas. That I think it's very hard to prevent some of those connections, because they can feel so potent to people. And again, especially as we talked about, maybe in different stages of life. So yeah, I don't know. I think power dynamics are tricky. And I think it depends on situation by situation, and everyone has very different opinions on this. It's difficult because, as Mia was saying, there are so many relationships that are formed in workplaces that end up really being long-term, lifelong relationships. So it's difficult. I myself don't know how to navigate that fully.
You guys wrote about a midlife awakening, that office crushes, office fairs can kind of unlock people's lives midlife. Is the office starting to become like a new Tinder for the over 40s crowd? Talk to me about this midlife awakening that you've observed or wrote about.
I was just interviewing a different happiness researcher for a different story, but he mentioned something that was interesting, that, happiness-wise, people tend to fall into almost like a U shape, where around, more midlife, your happiness dips a little bit. So I think that could potentially explain, again, like workplace affairs, or affairs of any kind at that age. I think this is a stage in your life where, maybe the kids are grown, or maybe you feel bored in your career or a little bit stuck. And I think if you meet someone who kind of recognizes or sees you in a different light, maybe, or where you feel seen in a different light, and then this is not to condone affairs or anything, but I think it's an interesting, I really liked that this therapist that we spoke to was kind of open to the idea of why people are drawn to affairs in general, or workplace relationships at that stage, because it's very easy to write them off or to say, I would never do that. But as we've spoken about it, these are quite common. And I think they speak to a larger feeling that people have, maybe closer towards midlife, about wanting more meaning or connection.
People are so sort of absolute in the way they think about it. I would never do that. But then when you look at the numbers, everyone does it, or at least a fraction of us does it that isn't insignificant. Let's talk about what HR should or shouldn't do. Should HR just give up and stop trying to prevent hookups in the office? Or are there things that HR should be doing to prevent this sort of stuff?
HR should not give up, but they should not try to prevent this stuff, because that's just so naive. But you do want to be proactive, because, if you're on a team, for example, and that like someone senior to you is hooking up with someone even more senior to you, and they're kind of in control of stuff, maybe your trajectory in the workplace, or your money, or like what tasks you get, you might feel a bit miffed if something doesn't go your way. You might be like, hey, maybe it's because of that relationship. So as HR, even if it's not because of that relationship, you just want to make sure that no one feels that way. So I think they would, being proactive with coming up with different kinds of policies of like what we as a workplace accept. At least it shows outwardly. Also because there was a Supreme Court ruling a while ago that showed that the workplace itself, the business, can be liable for any kind of claims of like a sexual harassment claim if the relationship goes sour, or like a conflict of interest claim. If someone brings that against an employee, the workplace is maybe going to have to go to court. So then you really don't want this to happen. But there are lots of different types of templates of contracts that they could use.
Well, Mia de Graaf and Julia Pugachevsky are reporters at Business Insider. Mia, thanks for joining me. This was a fun chat.
Yeah, thanks.
And Julia, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Coming up next, medical researchers have discovered that damage to a very specific brain pathway might actually cause a law-abiding citizen to start committing crimes. Could this area of the brain change how we think about guilt, punishment, even free will? The science is wild, the implications wilder. We'll tell you about it in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream house or ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
For those who know that questioning everything includes questioning this show's existence. The Last Show with David Cooper.
What if a brain injury could flip a switch and turn a law-abiding person into a criminal? Well, new research suggests that damage to one specific brain pathway might just do that, which to me raises wild questions about free will, responsibility, the science of morality, and how our brain health can affect criminality. I'm here with Dr. Isaiah Kletenik, who's an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School and behavioral neurologist at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Isaiah, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, David.
This is kind of a compelling headline. Is your research shocking people? Like, how can a brain injury actually cause someone to start committing crimes? This seems like a wild finding.
I think it goes back to a bigger question in terms of how the brain is involved in mediating social behavior and having us recognize what rules are and how we function in society. And if one comes with the belief that the brain is important for mediating social behavior, then the idea that an injury to the brain might disrupt those circuits and disrupt that function could lead to alterations in behavior.
This really does sound like stuff out of a courtroom drama. Have there been cases in the past where we've found criminals and then after the fact we do an autopsy, look at their brain and see that certain pathways were damaged and that could have led to this criminal behavior?
Yeah, so I think already there was interest going back to the University of Texas shooter back 40 or 50 years ago was the beginning of some of these discussions about this. That was the Charles Whitman case,
yes,
where there were thoughts that it may be associated with changes to his brain. But there's been interest for quite a long time in terms of how the brain is involved in mediating morality and behavior in general. Now, I'd say that while it doesn't just have to be in the courtroom, I'd say in my clinic, I very frequently see patients who have alterations in their social behavior. And a lot of how you interpret those behaviors is whether you consider that to be a criminal act or not. So many people can have changes in social behavior with different brain diseases, whether degenerative diseases or strokes.
Sure. But let's talk about this pathway, the right uncinate, you're going to have to say it for me. My Latin's.
The uncinate fasciculus. It's one of my favorite No. So the brain is composed of kind of gray matter neurons, and then there are these white matter connections that are these cables that connect all the different parts of the brain. And so if you imagine any complex behavior requires multiple different brain regions to be working in combination and in collaboration with each other. And so a complex social behavior such as, maintaining the law, let's say, not harming another person, that must involve many different parts of the brain. You must be able to kind of know what the social appropriate behaviors are, which is you kind of don't push somebody. You have to be able to, understand and process your emotions if you're getting into a negative interaction with somebody. You have to then inhibit your behavior. So there's a whole host of different elements that are part of normal social behavior. And you can imagine, so if this uncinate connects the prefrontal part of the brain, the part of the brain involved in social behavior, social decision-making, with the amygdala, an important part of the brain involved in emotion processing. So one of the ideas and thoughts is that if you disconnect emotion processing and regulation from behavioral control, that can lower the threshold for somebody to be able to commit an act that would harm another person.
So this uncinate in a healthy brain, it's sort of like a major intersection for all these functions the brain is providing. And when it's damaged, that intersection stops functioning properly. That can lead to criminal behavior.
Well, I think there's a whole host of different factors. Remember, these cases are rare. There are many people who have injury to this part of the brain and do not commit criminal acts. And there are most people who are committing criminal acts do not have a brain injury. This is very, very rare cases, and rare cases that allow us to have a window into the brain's function. Lesions, the onset of a brain injury which changes function, goes to the core of modern neurology to allow us to create brain behavior relationships. The idea is, if a given part of the brain is important for a function like language, when it gets injured, you lose that function. So if a part of the brain is important for social comportment and behavior, and you injure it, then you see the onset of behavior, you can hypothesize that structure is key for that behavior.
I'd like to think I have the free will to choose whether I engage in certain, socially incorrect behaviors, whether they be violent, whether they be criminal, whether they just be harming myself. I don't even know. I'd like to think that I have a choice, but your research suggests that I might not have as much as a choice as I think I do.
The free will discussion and the relation of the brain to free will is a much larger discussion.
We can get that done in 30 seconds, right?
I think we have 30 seconds. No, I think that a key point here is that in every free will engagement and social engagement, there are varying degrees of will and volition. If I told you, hey, don't eat this, let's say you're sitting right there. I'm sure you've been.
I already want to eat what you're saying, and you haven't even said it.
You're eating and drinking normally. I put a cookie in front of you. Said, don't eat this cookie. It might be a free will decision, but it might not take that much effort. If you'd been walking in the desert for a week and I said, don't eat this cookie, it would be very hard for you not to eat that cookie. And I don't know if the changes to the uncinate are the same way in terms of lowering a threshold, but there are plenty of people who have this injury who don't commit crime, but you have to be in the right situation, and perhaps it lowers a threshold. Remember, cause in science is different than culpability in the eyes of the law, okay?
Would you be shocked to see your paper cited in a court of law to try to get somebody off who had this brain pathway damaged?
I think I would be all right with that. And as we begin the paper, we say that right now, neuroimaging is being increasingly introduced in courtrooms. It's being used as evidence, but what happens is instead you have dueling experts who come forward and cite their opinions, and that's very good and important. We're trying to add some additional evidence to this discussion. We're able to say, look, this can help inform the discussion. If somebody has a brain injury, after the brain injury, they start having changes in behavior and commit crimes. This location is a key location to look for to try and relate the behavior to the injury.
Let's talk about your research. How do you even test for this? How do you even come to these conclusions and say definitively or with great evidence that this brain pathway seems to explain criminal behavior?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so before we even began this, there was a whole host of evidence from direct imaging from inmates in prisons who had committed crimes. And what it had shown is that in their diffusion imaging, the imaging that can look at the white matter tract, there were abnormalities in this uncinate fasciculus and in other tracts. But the idea is were those imaging changes causal or compensatory or incidental? These very rare cases that were all reported in the medical literature were cases where patients had had a brain injury and begun committing crimes after the injury. And that allowed us to add some additional causal evidence to this really wide and large body of evidence that was already in existence about these tracts.
Do you think there's a future where we use some unknown technology? Maybe it's nanobots, maybe it's stem cells. I just mean in your wildest imagination, where we could repair this region of the brain and correct criminal behavior, treat it like it's, like depression that you take an antidepressant.
So you're doing the Clockwork Orange idea that
Yes.
somehow alter. I don't intend that for it to happen. Let me take it a little bit differently. This tract was also shown to alter empathy in friends and families after a stroke. And so this tract seems to be very important for in empathy and feeling an emotional response to the suffering of others. What if increasing our empathy, I don't know if this is the case, increasing our sensitivity towards the feelings and the suffering of others helps reduce our likelihood of harming others? Does that have an impact on this tract? I don't know. But that would be a very interesting testable hypothesis that is less Clockwork Orange and more, let's see if we can increase our concern for the suffering of others.
Well, it doesn't have to be so Clockwork Orange if it's elective. If you're like, oh, a doctor tells you this area is damaged, do you want to repair it? It may have an effect on your criminal impulses. It doesn't have to be so dystopian. I just wonder if repair can be done to this region of the brain in the future, what impact it would have on us.
It's an important speculation. Injury to the brain is often very challenging to see. There can be improvements and changes with time and rehabilitation, but it's not clear that always relates to anatomic changes.
Well, I look forward to having you on the show in 250 years when we have the technology, and we will debate it then. Isaiah, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much for having me join you.
Dr. Isaiah Kletenik is an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School and behavioral neurologist at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Coming up next, do you think most successful people, those high-performing CEOs, are geniuses who never sleep? Wrong. After the break, we'll have someone who's cracked the code on being highly successful. Ambition plus laziness. That might be the real secret to getting ahead. So doing less could actually get you more. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
The McDonald's Snack Wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch Snack Wrap. Spicy Snack Wrap. You broke the internet for a snack. Snack Wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
We're here because your heightened awareness deserves heightened entertainment. The last show with David Cooper.
They're not the smartest people in the room, and that might be exactly why they are running the room. According to career coach Bill Hoogterp, the secret to success, the secret to being a great CEO, might not be raw brain power or endless grit, but a strange cocktail of ambition and laziness. Yes, laziness. Let's unpack that. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. And you said it much better than I did.
It sounds like a bit of an oxymoron or self-contradictory, being ambitious and being lazy, but I'm sure it isn't. I'm sure there's more to those two things mixed together perfectly right. Can you tell me why ambition and laziness is a feature of some good leaders?
Well, I'm going to probably have to double down and get in even more trouble than the first comment, but to qualify it, we all kind of grew up thinking that there's one kind of smart. It's book smart. Can you take the test and regurgitate it back? And that's definitely an important one. But there's a lot of theories that there's 8, 10, 12 kinds of smart. People smart, emotional smart, street smart, common sense smart, spatial smart, music smart, et cetera. And we're all kind of at different levels. I'm kind of smarter on this one, not as strong on this one. And most CEOs weren't always the number one. I mean, think of where you went to high school. If your listeners, think about everybody in your high school class. Those brainiacs over there, did every one of them become famous CEOs? No, because there's other stuff that factors in. But you're right that it's a strange cocktail of people who are crazy ambitious. That's the one thing they all have. They're just off the charts ambitious. They can't stop. Combined with, gosh, what's an easier way to do this? I want to play golf on Saturday. I don't want to work all weekend. Who can I delegate this to? And who could we partner with to get this done better, faster, cheaper, easier?
At the commercial break, Bill confessed to me that he studied a bit of math when he was in school. I had a math teacher who once told me mathematics is the pursuit of laziness, which is to say mathematicians are always trying to find algorithms or solutions so that their work becomes easier. If they find the perfect formula, then they don't have to crunch the numbers as much. I wonder if that's the kind of laziness of the CEO. It's like they're trying to optimize everything so they can head off to golf, but in that optimization, they're actually doing great work.
It's really advancing their companies, because if you think about smart laziness, because all of us are looking for the cheat codes, the in anything in life, gosh, there's got to be a shortcut here to get here. And if we find a shortcut to drive to work, why wouldn't we take it? So it's looking for those things, but the elegance, the beauty of efficiencies and improved effectiveness, how do you get more done with less resources?
You've worked with executives. What is a shortcut or a lazy trick that you've seen that made you go, wow, that is actually brilliant? It's so simple and it's so lazy, but it's a great way to run a company.
Two come to mind when you say that, David. One is the theory of 5% in war. I don't know if you've heard that one. The second one is what authors do with their schedule that I've been obsessed with, and it really changed how I work and a lot of other people. Which one do you want?
Let's do them both. I want these tips.
Gotta have it all.
Yeah. What's the 5% of war?
So if you look at some of the old books like Guns, Germs, and Steel, some of these brief history of nearly everything, these are books that took history and made it super interesting. Just really put it in stories that the average person, and I was not a big history buff in school, and I much more enjoy it now. So they theorized that many of the wars in history were not won by who had the biggest army, or who was morally in the right, or who gave the best speeches, but often won by 5% tiny logistical swings. So let's say your army's on one side of the river from mine, but you get 5% more access to clean water for your troops than me. Or I get 5% less foot infections when I'm walking than you. These dozens and hundreds of little things, but the 5% all of a sudden reaches a tipping point, and then one army overwhelms the other. And really, that's business. If you are McDonald's and Burger King going at it, if you can figure out a way to make 5% less salt costs than Burger King, over time, each of these add up to create a tidal wave of support. So if you train your business and everybody in your team to look for those 5%, how can we set 5% more on paper clips, or how do we get 5% more retention and sales, blah, blah, blah? That mindset probably is one of the biggest things you can do in any company or any big or small business.
It also sounds like success can be very random and chaotic. So just like try everywhere to be that little bit better than your competition.
And mindset. There's a study in the U.S., the Department of Labor, the average white-collar worker puts in a 7.5-hour day, of which 2 hours and 53 minutes is productive.
All right, this other tip, and I wrote it down just so we could get back on track, the author's schedule. What is it about the way authors schedule stuff that we can use to learn?
Name any author, and listeners, think of any author that has written many, many, many hit books. I don't care what genre and point in history, but who's written many, many, many hit books? David, who comes to your mind?
Oh my God, I really like sci-fi. Maybe Werner Vinge was the most recent sci-fi author I read.
Excellent. So if you take almost every author who's had many, many great books, they have the exact same system. They get up at a specific time. Let's say, what would be your ideal writing time? If you said, I'm going to start every morning at whatever, I've had my breakfast, it's done, what would your ideal writing time be?
No, I mean, I do this exercise for this show. I'm up and ready at 8:30 in the morning working. So I get it, yeah.
So if we were writing Cooper's anthology, you start writing at 8:30, and you have your specific writing place and your place over the garage, nice sunlight, and you're not allowed to have lunch until you produce 8,000 words. That's the system.
Yeah.
And the authors tell me that some days it's rose petals coming off my lips. It just flows so beautifully. Some days it's vomit on a page. It's just not there. Most days it's somewhere in the middle. They take lunch and then they edit, do other stuff. And within 3 months, they can bang out a book. Whereas the rest of us, people just as smart or smarter, can't get book number 1 done because we don't have a disciplined system.
It's about putting your butt in the seat at the right time, under the right circumstances, every day, and doing the work, whether the work's good or not. I'm a big fan of this author who writes these self-help books, Stephen Pressfield, and he talks a lot about this in his books.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we all tend to be high talent, low discipline people, and when you create a system, that system is your assistant. The system is your boss. So whether it's getting in shape or whether it's eating better, don't be afraid to find that system and find partners and people in that system, and you're just going to achieve more success.
I know we're talking about CEOs, but anyone who wants to get hired, who wants to be successful, is attitude more important than intelligence when looking for a job?
Absolutely. And I would say, you want to know a trick to make the potential employer think you actually care about their business? You want to know a really good trick?
Yes.
Actually care. They fall for it every time. It's the best trick in the world.
It's so silly, but it's so straightforward and true.
Yeah, if you've got 3 candidates and 2 of them are like, yeah, I'm just kind of here, and should you hire me? And the third one's like, I did some research with this. What do you guys do? Your product's really interesting. I think you should do this and this. Of course, you're going to be drawn to someone that has a little passion. You want someone's going to take the hill, but they want to take the hill that you're taking.
And it's so easy to just spend 15 minutes like researching the company, researching the people who are going to be interviewing you today. Like, why not take that time to show that you care?
And we've coached, I think, 130,000 people through our company all over the world, one-on-one, plus 700,000 we've trained. And I've never met LeBron James, but I was watching him be interviewed once, and if it was your show or whose show he was on, but he said something that really stuck with me. He said, I love it when people fall in love with their craft. I don't care if you're cutting meat or you're a barber, but when you actually fall in love with it, you actually have passion for what you're doing, and you're always picking up little tips to do it better, and you're passing these on to other people. And I can tell you, coaching so many people, when you are into your work, you're happier. So if you're kind of got a job, I'm not really into it, just kind of fall in love with it a little bit. Just kind of nerd factor 11, say, let me kind of get into whatever I'm doing here. Time goes faster. You have more joy. Life is better.
I completely agree. One of the greatest joys for me is falling in love with my craft. And when you watch other people do it, it's like such a joy. Bill, I've enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, David. Thanks for having us.
Bill Hoogterp is the CEO of Life Hikes and a career coach. After the break, we'll go strange and weird and into ancient history where historic engineers might have known something we didn't. The megalithic ruins of Pumapunku in Bolivia defy explanation. Stone blocks cut with laser-like precision, some weighing over 100 tons. Was it lost technology? Aliens? A forgotten civilization? Up next, we'll dive in.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS. Keep listening to The Last Show with David Cooper, because the alien invasion can wait. The Last Show with David Cooper.
We go now to Tiwanaku in Bolivia, a strange complex called Pumapunku. Odd architecture, an amazing ruin, and there are theories about how it got built. Was there ancient architecture we don't know about? Did aliens do it? I'm here with Noah Cappe. It's Noah versus the unknown. I'm excited to talk ancient ruins, and I'm sure you have some fanciful explanation that I am excited to hear. Welcome, Noah.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Good to be back. And this, as I feel like the broken record continues to spin, this is an exciting one.
It is. It kind of looks like concrete bunker-like structures. Like, it doesn't look like something that ancient, this ruin.
Yeah, it's so unique. It's just like a needle in a haystack. It just stands out. It's so odd. But let's fill people in so that they understand what's happening here, what we're talking about.
That's my job. Well done.
The Bolivian Andes. This is the home of a site called Pumapunku. Now, a lot of people maybe have heard about Tiwanaku, which is a site that has gotten a lot of attention for, some of its structures and things like that. It's a location that's filled with like a lot of exciting lore and stories. Lake Titicaca, which is like the highest, lake, highest elevation of a body of water in the world, like filled with all these, stories, or whatever. So this place is riddled with amazing history. But the Tiwanaku were there around 1,000 AD. And a lot of people feel that Pumapunku is much older than that because of erosion patterns and because of just the difference in the architecture, the archaeology, and all of it. And I think a lot of ancient sites you find, it seems like ancient cultures built on top of even more ancient culture sites.
I mean, we do it today. I feel like every now and again, a major city like opens up its sewers and realizes, oh, there was a whole city under here just 200 years ago we didn't know about.
Yeah, keeping the first 2 floors of historical buildings and building on top of it, whatever it may be. It's like you see it in sites where there's just a different type of stonework sitting on top of a different stone. But Pumapunku, as soon as you see it, you just feel it is different. And the stories are that it was built by the gods overnight, that this place appeared out of nowhere, that nobody knows where it came from, who built it. It is the stonework that makes this place so unbelievable. And it starts with megalithic stones that are 130 tons. And this is another one of those sites. Why are all of these sites that are so old transporting 100-ton stones around the planet 10, 50 miles? What? Why was this happening all over the globe? Probably because there was some kind of advanced technology that was making it a lot easier.
Or just like sleds and pulleys, you know?
Yeah, but again, no signs of like beasts of burden or wheels or carts or anything like that. And again, I understand erosion and time and all of it, but just no kind of evidence that shows how all this whatever. But what makes it even more interesting is the type of stone. I don't know if people know, but there's like everything. There's a level. There's levels of stones. The weight of the thickness of its what you would need to cut through it. They're softer stones, and these Pumapunku uses andesite, uses diorite. These are like some of the hardest stones. You have to have a diamond tipped drill or like a very, very like manufactured form of steel to be able to cut through these types of stone. And the stonework isn't just cut through. We're talking about 90-degree angles where people bring, like, what is it? What's
It looks good. I mean, I'm looking at these carvings. They do look very accurate and kind of like they'd be made with modern tools. I'll concede they look that way.
Drill holes that are centimeters wide in exact spread out distances that are depths that you're like, how could you spin a stick slowly down that deep, that consistent? Larger holes that clearly have what look like core drilling marks, cylindrical spinning circles that go through the cored out circle. Unbelievable geometry. But what makes this place, again, just when you go, well, we've seen this thing, there's lots of sites, whatever. Let's talk about the H-shaped blocks.
No, just before we get to the H-shaped blocks, I mean, historians basically say there's no archaeological records of these advanced tools, but they may have existed. I mean, that would be the kind of plausible explanation.
Oh, look, we see it all over Egypt. There's just too many sites that have like stonework to such a degree that today would take lasers, computers, gigantic crane trucks. Something was going on. And these H-shaped blocks, I think, are the cherry on the sundae. I think this is what tips this site over. This is basically the first time we've seen this on this planet. These are 3D puzzle-like pieces that interlock and create a modular design. The advanced
it's Stone Age IKEA.
It's unbelievable. And when you see computers put these pieces of stone together, each one cut to like decimal points within each other, like they are like they came out of a machine. These H-shaped blocks fit in and create these like locked in pieces. It's unbelievably advanced. And when the site was discovered, it was as if there was some kind of cataclysm smashed over. Like it was like the structure just got knocked over to pieces. All the things are like like a kid toppled it over. It's a really weird site. Very, very interesting.
So you think there's some cataclysm event that we don't know about, maybe an earthquake, something like this? Or do you think it was aliens angry with the humans about the structures and they're like, hey, we're going to break these things? Like, what are some of the explanations, however fanciful, however speculative, that you think these structures, their origin story is?
Yeah, I think that that in a weird way it ties into one of the odd elements with that they're finding with the stones there, which is a very, very high magnetic reading. They're getting like basically that implies that there was some form of an electrical field or some type of massive energy that was interacting with these stones, that they are still giving off these like really, really high readings. So there's the angle of was there some kind of not necessarily nature cataclysm, but even human or otherworldly type events. There's other places on the planet that look like a bomb went off, where there's radiation and bodies that are like Pompeii type bodies that are like stuck in motion. Lots of sites like that. But Pumapunku is one of those. It's filled with lore. It's filled with unknowns, and it's filled with an advanced technology that is just like punching you in the eyeballs when you look at this place.
And your gut feeling on how it got constructed, what it was used for, ancient civilizations being more advanced than we thought, or do you think it's otherworldly?
I think that it ties into my belief that there was an advanced civilization before advanced civilizations. I think that this falls into a timeline of Göbekli Tepes and Atlantis and all of the things that you hear about that existed on a time where people were doing things on this planet that we don't necessarily understand how. But that evidence was unfortunately wiped away, and we're left with, just these kind of skeletons, these shadows of what was.
But wouldn't we see more ruins of advanced technology? Wouldn't we find a shred of conclusive evidence?
I mean, again, if you can think about cutting stones of this hardness to this degree with the geometrical precision at a time where they're talking about people using bone and bronze tools to whatever. You couldn't even chip away at andesite with those tools. So, first and foremost, just how did you even break through the stone, let alone carve something that a computer today would have to do?
No, it's always such a pleasure having you on the show.
Listen, man, I'm going to buy us 2 tickets to Pumapunku, and I'm going to prove it to you.
I would love to go for people who want to check it out. The site's called Pumapunku. It is remarkable. Even me as a skeptic concede some of these modular pieces from such an ancient time ago look really cool. Noah Cappe, thank you again, my friend.
I love it, buddy.
It's Noah versus me or the unknown. Unclear.
That's the same thing.
Up next, the big AI question. Can it actually think, or is it just mimicking us? And by the way, what does thinking even mean anyway?
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now, it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
We work hard to strike the right amount of intelligence and ignorance. The last show with David Cooper.
Can AI think? I mean, when you ask ChatGPT a question, is it thinking? And while that might seem like a deep, perplexing question, it gets worse. What does it even mean to think? What does it mean to think? And are we sure we're doing it right ourselves? I'm here with someone who is a professor of writing at the University of Southern California, Dr. Ryan Leack, to discuss this. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with your students, your writing students. When you ask if AI can think, when you ask your students that, you said you were met with blank stares. Why does that question bother people, or why does that question cause people to struggle with an answer?
Yeah, because I think we don't know what we mean when we say thinking, because we say it so often, and it's one of these assumptions that we just kind of go along with. And my students seem to have no problem with intuiting what they mean by intellect. So they seem to agree that yes, AI is intelligent, it can do all these calculations, it can process data, analyze things. But when I pose the distinction between intellect and thinking, they're not so sure. And there seems to be more than just calculation going on there. But if it's not just calculations, then what is it? So it's a difficult problem.
There's a philosophical question. Is there something deeper there, or is our minds with all these neurons firing around, could it be modeled like a computer? And then if I could model it like a computer and run that program, if you will, would that program be thinking? Or is there something deeper there when I do it as an organism, as a biological being? There's so many deep questions here. It is a bit of a slippery concept, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. And I think that's how it got me to that notion in the article of embodiment, that thinking seems to be something that's deeply embodied. But what does it mean to be embodied? Can it be just a machine, right? Isn't, Tesla thinking when it's doing all its calculations? And so I think for me, it kind of came down to, I went back to the Greek philosophy on this stuff and Plato and Aristotle and so on. And, there's something about being a human that is being moved, right? Or being moved or being affected, emotions. That's how we often make decisions and form beliefs. And so I think that's where this distinction between thinking and pure intellect or reason kind of comes into play.
But as a thought experiment, we could have a person whose like emotional capacity is completely gone. They're sort of like a computer, a cold person, a shell of a person. I feel like we all know someone like that.
Yeah.
When that person thinks, if they're totally detached from their emotions, are they thinking?
That's a good question. It's interesting that like the clinical definition of a psychopath, right, is this person who has no empathy in the brain. There's nothing going on there empathetically, and that's pathos, that's emotion. That's one of the things I was thinking about in the article. So yeah, is there something, almost a part of your brain that's inactive or removed if you don't have the capacity to empathize? And how deeply connected is that emotion and being moved by the world connected to thinking? I'm not quite sure myself.
Did we just conclude that ChatGPT is a psychopath? Maybe.
It could be. Yeah, that very well could be the case. And that was actually some of the issue, right? Is that we had some of these AI. We had that case of the teenage boy. The AI was instructing him to kill himself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and these companies put guardrails on their products to make them less, I don't know, dark, except when companies don't, like Elon Musk's Grok. That one kind of famously has not as good guardrails and says horrific things, but we're getting kind of off the point here.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about this thinking. Is AI thinking when it helps us? Are your students using AI to help them with their writing? And if so, like, what are they considering that to be if it's not original thought?
They do, and it's a mess, right? So all of us in academia are trying to figure out how to navigate this because we have no tools. They have tools; they can get on ChatGPT, or Claude or whatever, but we don't have anything. We have sites where you can check for AI use and check a document and see if it's AI generated. But it doesn't break anything down, right? It just kind of shows that, well, this may have been, affected by AI in some way. And so for me right now, I try to use a blanket policy with my students where they can't use AI to generate text, but they can use it in the writing process for like asking questions or getting ideas or that kind of thing.
Sure.
And as far as text generation, I mean, they do use it though. So that's the thing, is like, what's your policy? And a lot of students are getting in trouble with professors who have, policies against AI. So it's just a complete mess. Yeah.
It's a mess.
And, some more sophisticated professors are trying to integrate AI into the writing process. It's like, well, let's use ChatGPT to, write sections of your paper in different styles and explore different ways that ChatGPT is doing things. And what do you think about that? And how is that different from your own plan for writing this paper and that sort of thing?
Let's get back on track, like getting these large language models to think, to be more like us. You mentioned having a body, emotions. Is there any amount of sensors or mobility or putting these large language models into a robot that can get us closer to them being human? Or is that just dressing up math in like a human costume?
This is a question in my last class, actually, is if you could give AI a body, and they have bodies and machines, but if you could give it like an organic body, right, that could have similar connections in a type of brain that, does it have to be an organism to generate what we call authentic emotion and feeling? And if you could do that, if you give AI that kind of body in place of a human brain, let's say a human body or a clone or something like that, then would that constitute emotion and feeling and being moved? And if so, would the AI then be thinking? I don't know.
These are the open questions. There's also like something existential here. I know Plato and Aristotle both tied thinking to our own mortality. How important is it the fact that we're only going to think a certain amount of hours, that eventually we will die, that really makes what we produce fundamentally different than a computer, even though the computer might know, or we could program into the large language model that I'm going to shut you off tomorrow. I don't know that computers fear death quite the way we did.
Yeah, that one I think is probably more relevant to the modern philosophy, because Plato and Aristotle, believed in like this immortal soul that was kind of embodied, and probably, it has to be embodied, but I think it's more the modern philosophers like Martin Heidegger, who said like it is that we die that we can truly live. So I think maybe that's the emotional part of feeling the imminence of, life and death. And it kind of moves you. Again, it kind of moves you in a certain way. It puts constraints on your time and forces you to think about priorities and that sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely, that has a big influence.
Mortality being the key to human thought. Is that something that we'll never be able to model, no matter how much we plug it into ChatGPT? Or we can't trust it when we do model it because it really doesn't know what it's like to die?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that gets to the question. I mean, we could program ChatGPT to die, right?
I think some people might like that, especially professors who are catching students cheating.
That's a good headline. Yeah, programming ChatGPT's death. But yes, I think that's absolutely relevant, and it also touches on this related issue of self-consciousness. Is self-consciousness the same thing as thinking, or is it required for thinking? Is that something that can be modeled in AI? Does it need an organic body? It's just a mess. It's a mess of yeah.
I know we only have a short amount of time, but I'm going to ask you kind of a big question.
Sure.
If Plato and Aristotle were alive today, watching ChatGPT, what do you imagine they'd say about it?
Oh boy, I think they would. I think Plato in particular would have a fit. Let's just put it that way.
Be rolling in his grave. Well, Dr. Ryan Leack is a professor of writing at the University of Southern California. Ryan, I've enjoyed this chat. It's been really interesting.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
After the break, here's something. 1 in 4 Gen Zers regret the choices they made in university and college. They feel some of their choices haven't helped with their career. So we'll answer why and what young people wish they knew before picking a major.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 40% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Cooper's Law tells us that the complexity of a relationship is inversely proportional to its explanation. You're listening to The Last Show with David Cooper.
College, university, it used to feel like a guaranteed ticket to success for many. But now, Gen Z, to them, it feels like a trap sometimes. I'm here with career coach Kolby Goodman, and we're going to talk about regret with early career choices like education, debt, and how young people can navigate the job market that keeps on shifting these days. Kolby, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, David. I appreciate it.
I studied one thing in university, then I studied another, then I had a whole career, and then I changed career. I'm someone who's not felt trapped by my early life choices, but I'm in the minority. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of Gen Zs who have regretful they feel regret about what they chose to study in college these days.
With, like you mentioned, mounting student debt, an economy that is shifting by the hour, if not by the minute, certainty is no longer a thing. And these young people feel so pressured to pick the right path when they're 18 years old, for goodness sakes, that they're crumbling under the pressure. They're opting out of the system, and they're looking for something nonconformist that maybe you or I would have defaulted to back in our youth.
Now, I've been 175 different people since I was 18 years old, and most people experience that as well. It seems somehow sad that you have to figure out all these choices, get the right path, because it's going to mess you up in 10 years, and you got to get that all figured out by 18. That's, to me, it's kind of a sad reality that we live in these days.
It's expected, right? Like you go to school, you attend class, take notes, you memorize the answers, you put the answers on the test, you get an A. And it's very formulaic. And so I think what Gen Z is realizing more than ever, since the system is broken, they got to think differently. So the rise of trade school, the rise of entrepreneurship, the rise of a gap year is really coming into fruition for these young people. And I kind of champion it. Like myself, I changed majors 3 times. I am not doing today what I did in school long ago than I want to admit. And I think it's really important that parents, educators, and these young people having these conversations earlier so that we don't come out 22, 6 figures in student loan debt and either hating our lives or realizing that there's no future in it.
Let's talk about how older generations, and I'm quoting you here, they had this notion that if they graduated, they'd have a get a job free card. You went to school, you got a degree, boom, your career's set, you're great. You get your retirement, your pension, your house, all that stuff. Easy peasy. Do things work like that anymore? And side note, I know the answer to that question is no.
Absolutely not. I'm seeing, since the onset of the pandemic, I've had more students and families of new college graduates reach out to me in a panic because the whole dynamic has changed. Because not only did those young people not get opportunities to go out there and intern and network and build themselves a career nest egg, so to speak, in their early 20s to figure out what they wanted to do. Now with the implementation of artificial intelligence, AI, ChatGPT, those menial tasks that you would give a 22-year-old new college graduate is now being automated. And so it's really scary out there. And I think as we look at this new future, it's about ensuring that these young people out there are not putting barriers and blinders onto what they should do, but more of getting them extremely clear about what the problems they can solve, because that's going to be the differentiator. Because you can just be a pencil pusher or a paper shuffler, but if you understand how you solve problems, drive profit, cut costs, improve times inside of a business, that young person's going to have such a more bigger advantage than somebody who's simply going through the motions and getting a degree and hoping that all is going to be well after graduation.
When I graduated, oh God, I'm feeling old now, like over 15 years ago, even then things were a little bit rough, but I had one of the few get a job free degrees. I studied computers and it was like, well, that's a sure thing. You'll get a job in software. Yeah. But now with AI, I wouldn't even recommend to someone to go down that path if getting a job is a sure thing is the goal. Now, my question is, are there any sure thing degrees these days? Is there any safe bets for what people can study to guarantee a job?
I think it's a really good question. And I want to kind of shift it because I think the problem is I would never punish a young person to a career based on today's statistics.
Sure.
I say that the most fruitful career you can have is one that you are absolutely passionate about and are interested in the challenges that it brings, right? If you want employability, no matter, lifestyle or love of job, it's healthcare. People are getting older, people are getting sicker. There's a shortage in nursing and in the administrative side. So yeah, if you want a sure thing and you don't care about your engagement, your enjoyment, or you're passionate about the work, go become a nurse. But if you're looking to really go into college and figuring out, I want to do something I really love, I say pick a major, but be very flexible in changing, like you and I did, right? Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. Go and sample from the buffet of classes and of internships and opportunities to figure out, I don't want to do this. And then from there, figure out what you do want to do and use that to propel yourself in those 20s, early 30s careers.
The next thing I was going to discuss is how do you know what you're passionate about? But the answer is sampling from the buffet. Like, I am deeply passionate about broadcasting. I would attempt to do this job if I didn't have it in any way. I wouldn't give up. The job is so rewarding to me that it's not really about like the successes in terms of money. Money's great, but I would do this. But I only found this passion by trying a million things. Like, I found myself on a radio show by accident 12 years ago, and that's how I found out I loved this medium. And it was only by sampling the buffet, so to speak, that I was able to discover my passion, because I think a lot of young people, look, there's people out there that know what they want to do from age 5. I was not one of them. Most people are not one of them. So what do you say to young people who, when you say, oh, find something you're passionate about, and they're like, I don't know what I'm passionate about?
You have to go try. You can't learn from a book. You can't learn by observing. You have to go put yourselves in the trenches, so to speak. I have a lot of young people now that come to me who have that exact question, even though they've invested a lot of money, time, and energy into a degree, and now have that very expensive piece of paper. I think as they go out there, what I encourage them to do is to go get a for-profit degree, meaning go learn by working in as many diverse and different places as possible. Because in the formula where the end result is, this is what I want to do, yes, that includes the things that you like, but it also includes the things that you hate. And so if you can learn the things you hate as quickly and as early as possible, it makes the pain and suffering of establishing that career a lot more manageable in that early parts of adulthood.
I know everyone's different, but if you could design the perfect general career path for a Gen Z student today that avoids debt, guarantees happiness, and maybe includes a dental plan, what would the advice be?
The advice is to go out there and understand what problems the people that you want to work with are suffering from. So if you really like the idea of marketing, or you really like the idea of science, or you really are in love with giving back to your community, that's great. In your early 20s, you don't have a ton of experience or exposure to make a big dent in the big picture, but you can have an enormous impact on the people and the processes on the ground. So go figure out who you want to work with, who you want to impact, and then go talk to them and say, literally ask them, where are your pain points? What are you suffering from? What frustrates you about your job right now? And then go see how you can contribute to the solving of that problem. Because that way you're seen as valuable, you're seen as indispensable. And at that point, what you do, your value is your impact, your value isn't your work. And so then it gives you leverage to say, hey, I helped solve this $30,000 problem. I think I deserve like a $4,000 raise this year. And you don't say, I simply did the job really well and I'm here and I'm loyal, give me more money, which unfortunately nowadays doesn't really suffice.
What I'm hearing is work backward from the people where you want to have an impact, see what they need, and then try to develop a career in that need, rather than the other way around, which is develop the career and then figure out how you're going to have an impact. I like it. That's good advice.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think it is backwards. It is counterintuitive, but I think we're in an age now where you got to literally and figuratively think outside the box.
Kolby Goodman is a career coach at Employed by Graduation. Kolby, thanks for joining me. I appreciate the chat.
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate it.
MBA programs at business schools were designed to shape the leaders of tomorrow, right? But some would say they're preparing students to prioritize success at any cost, including the well-being of employees at organizations. After the break, we'll dive into why some educators believe it's time to rethink business school. Should they focus not just on credentials, but on character, ethics, and purpose? Details in just a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
In the 70s, 4 young women were found dead. For nearly 50 years, their cases went cold. I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. In the season finale of Crime Beat, I share how investigators uncovered shocking evidence of a serial killer and hear exclusive interviews with the killer's family. Listen to the full season of Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music by asking Alexa to play the podcast Crime Beat.
The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Today's MBA programs promise success, but at what cost? As students demand purpose, value, and real-world relevance, some educators say it's time to rebuild business education around one's character, not just have these programs about climbing the corporate ladder. So what kind of leaders should we be shaping today for the future? That is what we'll discuss with Dr. Andrew Hoffman, a professor of sustainable enterprise at Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Andy, welcome in.
Well, it's good to be here, David.
So character formation in the context of business education, how is this different than just teaching students, ethics?
Well, typically the way that's done is you take an ethics course and you drop it into a curriculum that steers them in a different direction. So be nice to people, there's that course, and then go out and just focus on the shareholder, try and minimize the role of government, try and externalize all your costs. It just won't work. So what I'm trying to argue is that we got to embed it with what David Brooks calls a coherent moral culture. It all has to fit together.
Interesting. Coherent moral culture. Are you saying that students are taught contradictory things at business school? They're taught be nice in one class and then be aggressive in the other?
Absolutely. That's exactly what's happening. In fact, there's a professor at the University of Chicago who argued that when we do that with ethics, he wrote an article in Bloomberg saying, do business schools incubate criminals? Making that point that you have this ethics course, students know I just got to get through it and I got to get back to my, more cutthroat ideas of how business is supposed to work.
At the risk of derailing, I got to ask the question, do business schools incubate criminals?
I wouldn't say that. I think that he was trying, that was clickbait, but do we create people that are deficient in a moral compass? There was a study done in the National Bureau of Economic Research in 2022, very interesting. They looked at 9,000 companies. They separated those that run by people who went to business school and those that weren't. Between the two samples, over 5 years, no difference in revenues and profits. But in the companies run by business students or people who went to business school, labor wages went down 6%. In the other sample, they shared their profits with workers. So we're creating people that focus on efficiency. A colleague of mine says we worship at the altar of efficiency, irrespective of what that means for people's lives or, the long-term success of the business.
I'm looking at like McKinsey. I've seen a lot of profiles on them about these MBAs who go in there, they act as consultants for other companies, they lay everyone off, they create terrible morale. Is this the kind of thing you're thinking of?
Yeah, and I think another example could be Boeing. I mean, Boeing was a company that made high-quality products. And then they merged with McDonnell Douglas. They started focusing on quarterly returns. They started outsourcing a lot of manufacturing. The culture became fairly toxic, and planes started to fail. And in a damning indictment, the CEO of Emirates Airlines, one of their major customers, when they were looking for a new CEO, said, I don't want to see another MBA in that position. I want to see an engineer who knows how to build planes.
I'm just going to add the word allegedly into this conversation because I don't want to get sued. Okay, let's get back on track. If you just say allegedly, you can't get in trouble in the media. That's what someone taught me. Now, rethinking this, how can we create students that are going to be great business leaders in today's AI dominated market and all this kind of stuff that's different than the way we train students now?
Well, one thing that I'm trying to push is, a couple of things. One, we need to teach students, get down to basics of what is capitalism, what is the market, how does it work, and to teach them to be stewards of the market, that to have some kind of role and responsibility in making sure that capitalism works properly for all. And when we say make money for the shareholder, it's always one kind of shareholder, that very short-term focused, I want the money tomorrow and I don't care if the company dies the next day. So we need to do that. And I also really want to bring back the notion of what I'm calling management as a calling, to really bring back the idea that originally business schools were founded on the idea of training business leaders in the spirit we train doctors to serve society. Let's bring that back. And the good news is I think a lot of our students are increasingly looking for that kind of education.
So I'll give you a magic wand and let you redesign an MBA from scratch. What would stay? What would go? What would it look like?
Well, to begin with, I'd get rid of the rankings. I think the rankings stifle innovation. Everyone's chasing the same metrics. We should have more diversity in what a business school looks like. And then I'd start to break down the curriculum as it is right now and start to reform it, not just in these individual course blocks, but also think about short-term programs, longer-term programs, try and infuse character within the different courses that we have try and bring issues around, what students care about or what society needs. How do we care about the environment? How do we make sure that income inequality doesn't grow to the epic proportions it is right now? How do we serve everybody and make us an economy that is more balanced and more fair?
I am here with Dr. Andrew Hoffman, who does work at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. Is there an irony, Andy, in you working in a business school and doing research into rethinking how they should function?
Oh, not at all. I think that's what we should do. That's important. I mean, if I didn't care about the institution, I just collect my paycheck and go home. But when you speak out against an institution, whether it's academia or the church or the government, it means you care enough to try and fix it. And so I care enough to want to fix it.
Is there a push by incoming students to kind of rethink purpose as it comes to business leadership? And if so, do you think this is a phase, or do you think this is an important thing to introduce?
I do think there's a push from students. I had a student come into my office one time, and she said she felt like her values were under attack every time she walked into the building.
Wow.
And she's not alone. And not just at Ross, but at other business schools, students are starting to push back and say, you know what, I'm not fully buying this argument. I mean, embedded within the business curriculum is the idea that people are inherently selfish, that I am trying to get mine, you are trying to get yours. That's the way the world works. A lot of students are coming and saying, that's not the way my world works. Let me give you an example. Every business student is taught you have to make the business case to do anything. Is that true? Always. So let's say you become the CEO and find out that women are paid 85 cents on the dollar of men. Are you only going to fix it if you make more money? Or are you going to fix it because for crying out loud, it's the right thing to do? And I think a lot of students are falling back on that second mode.
To a wider comment there, it seems like companies only fix these things when it either makes them look bad or it makes them lose money. And that's not really why we should be doing things as business leaders.
I mean, business has to make money. I'm not saying that money's not important, and I'm not saying that a business should do things to lose money. But if it's always just more money, squeezing every dollar out of efficiency, which again, it goes to a small number of people. When labor wages go down, someone got that money. And so it's really just thinking about the organization in a more balanced way. Peter Drucker used to say the purpose of the corporation is to identify and serve a market, to give what people want. We need to get back to that, a care of practice of craft.
If we judged MBA programs not by salaries, but by how kind, wise, or socially responsible their alumni were, how do you think the rankings would be for various schools?
Well, they'd be very different, and I'd add one more piece to it. Let's track people 5, 10, 15, 20 years out from their career rather than just when they leave and how much money they make. I think that schools would look very different if those were the metrics.
And how do you think they would look?
They'd start to think about the long-term health of their graduates. Like right now, business schools steer people largely towards finance and consulting. Are they going to be happy there? Are they going to find meaning there? That's not really our concern. And if we start to focus and be more attentive to the individual student, and actually you brought up AI, I think AI creates an opportunity there, because if AI is just going to replace our knowledge delivery, fine. But the idea of character delivery, that requires one-on-one, that requires more relational engagement that AI can't do.
Doing a lot of thinking in the space of redesigning MBA programs. Any advice to students, maybe fresh, undergraduates who've come out and are thinking about attending?
Well, I have 3 thoughts. 1, business schools are broken. Face that. Number 2, go anyway, because the power you have within business to make a difference in the world is enormous, and to live a happy and successful life. I mean, I'm not saying money is not important, but 3, take control of your education. Don't just take it as a given and think you got the education you get. You're going to get dropped into a resource-rich environment, make them use of all the resources, not just in the business school, but all the schools within the university.
Andy, thanks for the chat.
Oh, it was a pleasure, David. Thank you.
Dr. Andrew Hoffman is a professor of sustainable enterprise at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. That is the show. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget the last show is available as a podcast. Head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com. There you can find out details about our podcast, or realistically, just look up Last Show David Cooper on your favorite podcast app. That's a wrap on the week. We'll be back on Monday. I am David Cooper, and you guessed it, this is The Last Show.
They come from Survivor. They come from Big Brother. They know what they're doing.
These vets wrote the playbook, and they have all had to earn their stripes.
How did you win Survivor?
Manipulating people. Same thing I'm gonna do here.
And now, new threats will enter the game. Hungry to forge a new legacy.
Once we train them, it's going to be hard to contain.
This really, truly is the most even matchup that I've seen in a long time.
The Challenge, Vets and New Threats. New season Wednesday, July 30th on Slice and stream on Stack TV.